How's it, guys? Welcome to the Xpanded podcast. I am super excited. This is the release of the first episode. I hope to do many more. I've always wanted to start a podcast, so fuck it, let's do it. I think it's important to talk about things that nobody wants to talk about and raise awareness on key issues. Today I'm chatting to a good friend of mine, a former colleague, all around great guy. We've lived together, we've worked together, and he's super knowledgeable on this topic. We're going to delve into the farm murders in South Africa. I think it's important to highlight, not just because of the Black Lives Matter movement, but because if you want to take a racial lens and focus on a minority and discrimination against a minority, then maybe we should do the same in South Africa. Because when I see white kids protesting with their Black Lives Matter signs, that infuriates me because they don't mention what's actually going on in this country and the discrimination that's going on against a minority. Yeah. So we're going to talk about uncomfortable things that need to be spoken about, because when our president actively denies that farm murders are happening, and it takes Donald Trump tweeting about it for the rest of the world to have some idea about what's going on here, that really infuriates me. And so we decided to delve in and chat about this. I think this touches home for a lot of people. A lot of people know families that have been affected by this. On a personal level, my mom's sister's husband, my uncle, his brother, Rian Skippers, was brutally attacked and murdered in Alexandria in the Eastern Cape. This is a guy who could barely defend himself. He had been in a few accidents, and he was, it wouldn't have taken much to overwhelm him. Two guys brutally stabbed him, beat his head in, left him. He died a week later after fighting for his life. This man was involved in the community. He was involved in the church. He was involved in the black community. He gave back to the black children. They used to take them on, if I'm not mistaken, excursions and camps and really trying to give back to that community. So when things like this happen, it's horrendous. The violence of these attacks and just the brutal nature of them, it's really disturbing. If we're going to look at racial tensions that are building, this is definitely an area that needs to be looked at. So we're going to chat about it. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation and take something away from it, and let me know your thoughts. Peace, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, let's do this.
Let's do this. Big Fran, how you doing, my brother?
Yeah, man, we can't complain, eh? We're all good this side.
Good to have you on here. So, first of all, thanks for agreeing to do this. I know we've chatted a lot behind the scenes about this topic, and I think we both kind of came to the conclusion that it's something that we need to create more dialogue around. So I think we're going to tackle the subject of farm murders today. I'm definitely quite keen to hear your insights and what you have to say. And I just want to say as a disclaimer before we start this conversation that I don't think it's, about one crime being more important than another, but more rather like the focus of certain crimes, and then while others are not mentioned, So I don't even know, where do we even start with the farm murders? Or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good example of just last night when our president raised the concern, and just with the female rape victims and everything that's going on in South Africa, and that's a very good example of, I don't think one crime is more important than the other. I just think that farm murders it's something that we've been so conditioned, and it's so common to hear that there's been a farm attack that nobody actually stops and think of what's going on out there. Nobody thinks about the brutality of a whole family, of a whole business that's messed up. And I think that's the scary thing about South Africa in general, is that we've been so accustomed to crime, and everybody is so getting used to it that it's becoming a norm. And I think that's the reason why we're doing this chat as well, to not let that happen, and to not let farm murders be one of those things that become so common that it's just another news article. And
100%. It's I think especially, I was having this conversation with Hills the other day, and we have such a bad situation with crime in our country, and it's sad that what's happening in America is why I actually wanted to have this conversation as well. Is in America we got a situation where black people are the minority there, and they are protesting against injustices that are occurring against a minority. In South Africa, where white people are a minority, in certain circumstances it can be seen through a racial lens, but nobody seems to be speaking about it.
No, definitely, and I think like the racial part of it is it's something that everybody tries to step around and to not like take it head on. Everybody tries to find a path around it, and unfortunately we can't keep the race thing out of it, because most of these attacks are unfortunately black and white, and one of the reasons of that is just because most of the farmers and the land owned by farmers is majority white. And that's one of the biggest reasons why it comes forth like it's a racial thing. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. There's nothing that can change the stats that can change anything around it. You will find that there's black farmers that also get attacked. It's not just a racial thing where it's just white or just blacks that get attacked, or whatever race it might be. You'll find that if on some of the majority where there's big farm attacks, some of the workers even gets involved and they get killed and murdered as well, because they are seen as traitors. They are seen as they are working for the wealthy of South Africa, and they get stuck in between, where they try to help and they try to protect the family on the farm as well, and they get just murdered as well. So I don't think, yes, race does play an issue, but I don't think it's just majority race. This is a situation where we're looking at mass murdering happening, and it's happening on a daily basis. In 2019, we were sitting at 552 attacks in that year. That's 1.5 attack every day. That's with crazy. 57 murders. In June alone, up until now, from the 1st to the 15th, they released that there were 16 attacks with 3 murders. And that is just increasing drastically. And there's something that needs to be done for this to not, I don't think it's something that we will be able to stop completely, but definitely needs to come down. Those stats are too high. We are sitting, our farm attacks are 700% more than the world average.
Serious? Jeepers. There seems to be, we need to create more awareness around the specific topic itself. No,
definitely, and that's why I say, I think everybody is too scared to just face it straight on, because they're so scared that, because as well, like we all know it, you obviously know it as well, is that we have freedom of speech, but up to a certain point. And that's not always a good thing, because people are scared then to basically back themselves and to say what they want. And very interesting, when I was doing information on the stats about like farm murders, between 2007 and 2013, the South African Police Department didn't have any stats on farm murders. They basically stopped collecting any stats. So most of the stats that you get is from private institutions that took upon themselves to get stats and to compilate everything together and put everything on a chart. So there's a lot wrong with the system if you're sitting at that point. If your police department is not doing their best and not informing people and keeping track of what's going on there, then surely we're sitting with a bigger problem than just farm attacks.
100%. I think, like, for me, most of my information on farm murders, unfortunately to say it, but it comes from like Facebook or people posting about it, but you don't see it on mainstream. And I'll check News24 and I'll check South African news sites. And for instance, this is a typical example. The other day I read these are the typical kind of articles you'll see. You'll see an article about incident of racism in Pretoria Boys High School, and those kind of things will always be newsworthy and they'll be blown way out of proportion, but we will never hear about farm attacks. So I just feel like the focus,
Yeah.
for some reason, seems to be the media seems to have this. They want to drive this narrative of white racism, and they're always blowing that out of proportion to the extent that, like, I never hear about farm murders, to be honest. And I spoke to you about it recently and was like, I didn't know much about how hectic this really is, and I don't know. Is South Africa specific why they refuse to focus on it at all?
Yeah, and that's why I say, like, you're sitting with the big problem if the government, because the South African Police Service is a government-owned, state-owned department, if your government itself doesn't want to have stats on farm murders, you're sitting with a big problem, because it's like you said, farm attacks and farm murders, if you hear about it, it's just another thing that's happening. It's just another page in the newspaper to fill up space. And I think one of the reasons why it's got a little bit more attention in the last couple of months, it's obviously because it's increasing, number one. And number two, I think because of lockdown, people are at home, people are reading, people are more aware of what's going on in the news, because people are more dug into media and to social media, especially because they have more time on their hands, so they can read, they can get information. So I think that's definitely one of the reasons why it's getting a little bit more exposure in the last month or so.
I think people are also waking up to the fact that I know this whole Black Lives Matter movement is like the topic of the day, and I think so many people jump on that bandwagon, but a lot of people have realized, hang on, people in South Africa want to raise their voices about injustices in America, but nobody wants to face reality of what's going on here. And I mean, the last time I really heard about the farm murders on the news was, I think, in 2017, when Julius Malema was implicated in that whole thing about he approached one of the gang members in the prison, encouraging them to go and, attack farms and kill farmers. And, I know nothing's been proven, but nobody wants to investigate those things where there's incitement to violence, because it's, at the end of the day, that's kind of news phase and we forget about that, but there's some real issues here, but we tend to focus, the focus just seems to be way out of proportion.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, well, that's what triggered me as well, is the fact that everybody was making such a big uproar about that Black Lives Matters in the US, and it's not just in the mainstream, like in the US, it was everywhere, it was around the world, and it's the same thing. What happened there, it wasn't right, but you have the whole world in uproar because of one life, and we have 1.5 attacks, 1.5 attacks every day in 2019, but nobody cares to do anything about it. Julius Malema, to add what you said, had that whole song about kill the Boer, and that is not right. You're looking at some of the biggest political parties in SA, and they can do whatever they feel they want and sing a song like that, which is definitely racist. But that as well, it was something that was investigated for a couple of days, and we read about it for maybe 1 or 2 months after it, and it just it disappeared into nothing, into thin air. But if something racist like what happened in America, because it was a white policeman versus a black guy, it is worldwide news, and it's something that's like you cannot go onto social media and not see something about it. You understand? And that's just to show you how little anybody cares about what's going on with white lives in South Africa, if you want to call it. And
100%.
Yeah, I have no idea where it will stop and if it will stop.
Yeah. It's like I mentioned earlier. I mean, I think overall we have a massive problem with violence and crime in South Africa. I think I was looking at stats at perceptions, and in terms of homicide and violent crime, we ranked like 5 out of 5. You don't get worse. So I think it's it's not just farmers that are attacked. We've got a problem with crime and violence in South Africa as a whole. But in terms of this farmer specifically, what do you think, like, what are their motives behind it? You know, I think racially that is one of the dimensions in some of them, but there must be other reasons behind it or motivations. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so definitely, like we said, race plays a big issue, but
Yes.
the problem that we're sitting is the way these crimes are conducted and the brutality behind it. There's a definitely deeper psychological meaning towards the party, and I don't know why, but people do it, and there was a big study that was done by some other criminology professor, and it's called the Voids group conflict theory, and that's just it's a group of people, and you will associate with the people around you, but if you don't have, for instance, money, and you look towards people with a lot of money, or you look at people that is wealthy and has got a lot of money, and you get people that feel the same as like what you feel towards a certain party, then you guys will associate together, okay? And that's essentially
kind of like that mob mentality.
Yes, and that's essentially what these oaks are doing. So they get together, so they form like a network of robbers, murderers, and they associate with one another. And that motive that they have, they've got a common motive, which might be hatred. They envy money. They feel that what was promised to them by a political party is not fulfilled. They feel that they are previously disadvantaged, and because they're previously disadvantaged, they want to see people suffer like they did and like they do. So that's the majority of what you can get. But other than hatred, it doesn't leave a lot why people do it, because as I said, the way they do it, the brutality behind it, you have people that are not just murdered, they are brutally and violently being tortured, and these attacks can go up from anything from 30 minutes to 4 hours, and that's quite a long time.
It doesn't seem to be just a case of them going to loot and steal and rob. It seems to be actual attacks, like horrendous, brutal. I mean, the stories I've heard, it seems to be extremely horrific, kind of graphic, violent crimes.
Yeah.
It's only, in my opinion, a psychopath or a really, vicious human being would go out and do.
Yeah, and the way they torture the people as well. And if you go and look at the stats as well, most of these people that get attacked and tortured and everything, they are between the ages of 60 and 80. So there's no way that somebody that's 80 years old can fight off 3 young individuals, young men.
100%.
So it's not a fact of getting into the farm, getting into the house and taking stuff and leaving. It's they there for, and these guys plan it obviously weeks in advance. They there and they stay there for a couple of hours to basically just do whatever they want and what they feel they want to do. And we're not going to go into like specific things and what they do, but if you look at most of the crimes are not conducted with firearms. They do have firearms with them to cause intimidation, but most of these crimes and attacks are happening with knives and pangas. And if you look at the whole way and the psychology behind stabbing someone or killing somebody with a knife, there has to be a lot wrong with you, because it's so intense and it's such an emotional, dramatic way of either killing someone or just stabbing someone because it's right in your face. If you shoot someone, it all happens from a distance. It happens from 5 meters to 10 meters and onwards. It's there's you pull the trigger here, something happens 10 meters away, and the person fall over and he's dead. This is very close. This is you can feel a knife going into a person. You can see the blood. Everything is way more visual and it's way more graphic. And the ways that they do it as well with pangas, it's hacking somebody to death with a panga is it's horrible. I can't think of something more violent and more brutal than hacking somebody with a panga. And like I said, this is not just robbery. These are robberies with the intent to kill, with the intent to try and, I don't know, succeed something. And they have a weird psychological need that they're trying to fulfill with basically these killings and torturing people.
Yeah, I think it's, I spoke to a good friend of ours, Hilton, 2 days ago. We were chatting about this as well. I know this is graphic, but it needs to be spoken about. It's horrendous. The stories he was telling me, he had a farm and they were attacked twice on the farm. He wasn't there for both instances, but luckily his mom and his brother managed to escape both times unscathed. They had dogs which protected them, and but horrendous stuff. Like they wanted to rape his mother and kill his brother and stuff. Luckily none of the stuff happened, but the stories he was telling me in the neighbor's farm where the guy, he was walking away and they literally shot him in the back. Just brutally horrendous, kind of sick, inhumane crimes that's going on. And the most psychologically disturbing, imagine the victims of these crimes, the ones that survive and the ones that, it must have such a psychological impact on them. What I was looking at, how people secure their farms at night, it's like securing a country for war almost. It seems like it, the way they have to go through all these procedures, how to lock up, how to live in that kind of state of fear must be on another level. I don't know. Honestly, I would never be able to be a farmer in this country.
No, definitely, and that's the thing. It's so that's the thing. Imagine going to work every day and you are scared out of your mind for your wife or your children that's at home. Imagine waking up at night hearing something and you have to get up and go and look what it is because you're on a farm. We're not supposed to live like that, because one of the basic rights in South Africa is you have the right to, number one, to live, to life basically, and then one of the second things is you have the right to security. And we all do.
Yes.
We all do. But in South Africa, at this stage, it's safer to be a policeman than to be a farmer. And that's not right. You can't live in fear like that. And unfortunately, we all are not fortunate enough to just pack up shop and leave South Africa. Some of those farms have been through generations and generations, and you can't just pack up and leave. Unfortunately not. So definitely the way those guys have to go forward, and I've been on a couple of farms, and like you said, it's like people are securing for war. You have beams and alarms and tactical units that can respond within a couple of minutes. You have electric fencing, you have dogs, and if they get through all of that, then you still have the house that's secured with burglar proofing and all that stuff. So yes, I can't think that it is nice to be a farmer in South Africa. That's in this time. It's not right. You're taking some of the basic rights away from a lot of people.
But I think the underlying causes, and if we look back, I know we have inequality in our society, and we have a disproportionate amount of, if we have to look at it through a racial lens, which I hate doing, white farmers, but the media and the government and the politicians, and they continue with this rhetoric of land expropriation. That's our land, and we have to rectify the injustices of the past. Fair and well, but if you're going to go now and just take away the land, look, case in point, look what happened in Zimbabwe. you can't just take away the land, even if it was not violent. Even if they decided to take all the land away, we have to consider the skills needed to farm the land and actually provide food for our country, as well as you don't fix inequality with more inequality. So yes, we have a difficult past that we need to look at, but at some point, it's frustrating to see the media and specifically the politicians spewing this whole take the land, take the land, take the land, because this instills that into these people who then want to go out and just kill the people and take the land. And it's like, if you look at the bigger picture, it's a recipe for disaster. In the long term, it's really worrying, man.
Yes, no, I definitely agree with you, and that's the thing. Everywhere in the world, it happened in the past. Everywhere in the world, there was slavery and there was apartheid and all those type of things. But why is it that South Africa just can't get over it? Why is it that we are so stuck in throwing the apartheid word around for every one of our single problems? And like I said, I don't know how long this will still go on for, but something needs to change, and it needs to change quickly, especially for South Africa, because we are following the same road as Zimbabwe. All the stats are there, all the studies are there, that if we continue on the same trend in 10, 20 years time, we will be the next Zimbabwe. You can't, unfortunately,
100%.
you can't just take land away and give it to someone that doesn't have the necessary education, that doesn't have the necessary skill. You unfortunately can't do that. And a lot of these white farmers are helping a lot of black communities by employing people, employing workers.
Exactly.
An average farmer has between 30 and 50 people that works for him on the farm. That is 50 families that probably is getting money from that one person that's sustaining a family. But they're looking at the smaller picture. They are looking at land and as just having land as directly equated to money, which is not. You can have the biggest farm. If you don't use it right, you're not going to have anything.
100%. I think it is more of a political game that they play, because they know that they can push more votes if they promise the people more land, and they also know what they're doing, these politicians. It's a very sick game that they play. But I like the point you touched on with the history, and I think people don't understand history, and history is not a perfect place. The whole of history is one big, learning from the mistakes and injustices, and we have inequality, but it's like what's happening in the States now. They want to tear down all the statues, and it's happening in South Africa. They want to just erase our history. But history is not, I read something interesting the other day, and it said, without history, good or bad, who are we? If we don't remember where we came from, how can we hope to continuously improve? If we can't learn from the mistakes of the past, and then if we try and recreate the truth by just tearing down history and creating a new one, we're doomed to repeat the same mistakes. And that's exactly what's happening in South Africa now, where there is reverse racism, and as much as nobody wants to acknowledge that, there is now literally a situation where we're going into where it's more and more and more trying to fix the past inequality with more inequality and discrimination. And it's at some point it needs to be called out for what it is. And it's for the fact that Donald Trump has to tweet about farm murders in South Africa, and we don't hear about it on our media. That just really infuriates me. No,
I definitely agree with you.
What do you think as a community? I mean, besides trying to create dialogue and awareness around this, what do you think as a community people can do to, I don't know how you put a stop to this or try to put a stop to it, or it's the same thing like with the gender-based violence, and I know that's an issue in South Africa. It's an issue worldwide, and certain people like to make a lot of noise about certain things, but how do you tackle the underlying by shouting about gender-based violence? It's not going to stop that from happening in those communities and our communities. And it's the same with farm owners. We can shout and scream all day about it, but I wonder sometimes, how do we move forward? What would your thoughts on that be?
So I think there's So let me tell you what's happening now is that most of these communities are working closely together, and they are creating tactical response teams on farms.
Okay.
And 6 or 7 farmers in a closed community, they will do patrol at night. They will share it. You get one night a week, and you drive up and down, and everybody's got radios.
Okay.
So that's what some of the communities are doing now. People are unfortunately, they're taking it upon themselves, funding, like we said, their own security. And that, as we said, that's a basic need, a basic law in South Africa, security. So yes, that's what's happening now. Most of these guys are taking upon themselves to do it. What I would like to see, and what I think can work, is you have to start from the ground in trying to find out what is going on with the police department. What's going on with the police service in South Africa?
Yes.
What's happening there? Is it are we sitting with a bigger problem than just people that doesn't know how to deal with this? Because if you phone the security, or you phone the police service, and they take a half an hour to get to the farm, there's no way, it's over. By the time they get there, it's over. So you definitely have to start, I would say, with police service and giving guys, in a sense of the farmer, a little bit more right to defend himself, in whatever sense that might be, because the gun laws in South Africa is very strict. If you look 20 years ago, the farm murders and attacks and murders in general in South Africa wasn't that high. People acquired guns and could defend themselves a lot easier before everything got so strict. So now to get hold of a gun for self-defense, it's a little bit more tricky. There's a lot of processes you need to go through. You can wait up to a year or 2 before you actually get that license, if you get that license, and then eventually you have a firearm. And I'm not saying like that is the main issue that will solve everything. It's not. You can't just give everybody a gun and say, cool, it will go away. That's definitely not. That's definitely not going to solve everything. I think, yes, the biggest thing is the police service need to own up to it. That is why they're there. Our police service is there to protect us as citizens of South Africa, and it comes down and boils down to people being competent in not doing what they're supposed to. If you know in general that if you have a 8 to 5 job and XYZ is expected from you, and you don't do one of those things, it's sorry, you out. But they don't really have that. They know we don't have enough, because we do not have enough police personnel in South Africa for all the people in South Africa. So you're going to have to increase your police force. But it's all just it's spiraling down to people that's being incompetent, number one, I feel, and not enough. We don't have enough police personnel to protect our farmers, to keep them safe. Our jails are too full. People are getting out too easily. There's a lot wrong with the system, and I feel that it's the whole system letting the farmers down. I can't just blame it on one thing. I think the whole system in general is rotten, and we need restructuring from the base down all the way to the top, to say that cool, because you can't let evidence pieces just disappear. How does it disappear? How does it get stolen? Like, how do you find a firearm on a crime scene and it just disappears within a week? It's impossible. Then from there you don't have any leads, you don't have any clues, and we could, like, one of the biggest cases that South Africa ever had was Oscar Pistorius case, and there was 10 to 20 people in and out of that house within the first 15 minutes. So you don't have any evidence. And that there you go. That is one of the main things. It's incompetence. People, and we had, and we still have some of the best systems and scientific systems in the world to solve crimes. We still do have that, and we have that ability to do it. It's just we are not using what we have.
Yeah, I think that the incompetent issue is a big one, and I mean our police force. I think they underpaid the police officers. You get the sense of underlying resentment, bitterness. They're not happy with their working conditions. They're not provided with what they need, and so I think when they get calls to go out to farms or whatever, and their work environment isn't right, and they're not happy with that. It leads on to an overflow of other issues that then we don't have. Sometimes we don't have the most competent police who are the most responsive and all of that. But I like what you said about the gun laws, because I actually had something that I wasn't too clued up on. But looking at America recently as an example, and they have, almost a little bit too much of a liberal policy regarding that, where anybody can just go buy a fucking gun. But in some degree, it's like everybody should have the right to defend themselves and bear arms, and I think it can be argued until you're blue in the face, but at the end of the day, people kill people, not guns. So if you can protect yourself, and you should be allowed to. And I think criminals, if they want to get weapons, they'll get weapons illegally. So we should allow good law-abiding citizens to be able to purchase weapons and not have such a massive process to get a gun. I mean, have some kind of process, but I think people should actually be armed. Definitely. I think
I agree with that 100%. I don't think that it must be easy and just a small process to get a gun license, by all means. And in general, it is a big process to get a gun. I think what is killing everybody at this stage is just the waiting period, because you don't know. It's a gamble. If you hand in an application, it might be 3 months, because that's it's supposed to be 90 working days, so call it 4 months, or it can take a year, and that's the problem. In most parts of USA, you can, where guns are legal, you can purchase a gun, a background check can be done, and 2 days later you have the gun. I'm pretty sure that in SA we have those type of systems. If we have a system that can link your ID number to your car's registration and can send you a notification on a FNB app to tell you that you have a fine outstanding, and there's a system in place to prevent you from renewing your car license, surely we have those systems in place to do a background check on somebody that's not going to take that long. And yes, like I said, guns won't stop the violence, but it will certainly bring down the numbers, because if you know that farm owners are basically bearing guns and they armed, you're going to think twice in just walking onto a farm and trying to attack people in a house.
100%.
And they will definitely take note of that if some of these robbers or some of these farmers actually fight back and kill some of these robbers. They will definitely think twice before just going into any farm.
The current trajectory of it and the way it's going is like the kind of unrest that's building in people, and the state of the amount of people wanting to leave the country, and I just, it's not a good trajectory that we're on, I feel, and it's very sad, man. It's a sad situation. I mean, we both South Africans, and we love our country. We don't want to leave the country. Like you said, the systems in place, we should have better systems, but with our government and the corruption and how everything is just one big mess. So it is, I suppose.
And I think that is like, that plays part in what's going on. It's all the corruption. Like I said, the system is rotten to the core, and we need to get to the core. And because of all the corruption, the police service is not doing their job properly. And like you said, because
100%.
they are not getting paid well, they are corrupt. but they're not getting paid well because
Exactly.
people steal the money and they don't
Yeah.
raise their salaries. And it's when last did you walk into a police station and you felt, number one, welcome, or number two, you felt like this place is in a good condition?
Yeah.
You just don't see it anymore.
All you sense is people pissed off that they have to do anything, because you can sense they're like, it's a horrible place to be. They don't want to be in those police stations working there.
Exactly.
And that, I feel, is the underlying cause of our... if I was a police officer in this country, I would also be fucking corrupt, 100%.
Exactly. Because there's
I'd
no
be
way
like,
you can
screw
live
this
off that
system,
salary, and there's nothing to be proud of.
It's a tricky one, man. It's a complicated issue, but with multiple, I suppose, factors around it. But yeah, I don't know. This has been an interesting chat. I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on with the farm murders, man.
I think I've said everything that I wanted to. I think just to reiterate that I don't feel that this is a massive race issue. I think that it can be solved.
Yeah.
I think it can be solved, number one. I think there's still, with all the depot things that we just said about South Africa, I still think it's an amazing country, like you said, and I think we have the potential to be an awesome country, and there's still a lot of good happening, because people will look at this and just be depro after this, but there's still a lot going for us as a country, and the people is amazing, and the culture and everything that we have. It's like you said, we can't destroy history, and it's nobody's fault that we have that history. We have it. We just need to learn, look past it, and move forward. Otherwise, if we return to history, we won't move forward as a country.
Exactly. And like I said in the beginning as well, we're going to obviously get framed as a racial issue we're talking about, which it is, but in light of the Black Lives Matter movement, which has its validity to some degree, but that's a whole other topic on its own. It just infuriates me when I see white people protesting Black Lives Matter, but they don't know anything about the farm murders in South Africa. So if you want to talk about a racial lens on the minority, then we need to focus on what's happening to our minority citizens in South Africa. And that's the crux around this. And I know me and you are two white guys talking about this, and we're going to be framed as, they just want to talk about farm murders and they don't care about black lives. But that's not the point. Like I said, it's not about one or the other being better. It's about where are we focusing our attention on what critical issues. And I think this is a critical one that needs to be spoken about. But I do also feel that people are waking up to the bullshit of the mainstream, because journalism used to be a respectable career, and I think that now journalists are more just activists, and they're not telling the truth. They're more trying to get clickbait headlines. Did you see those ENCA journalists, two of them that criticized Dlamini Zuma? They almost got taken off air.
I saw that.
So as a journalist, actually, they have to conform to whatever the narrative is and whatever you're allowed to focus on. You can focus on, small little racial incidents of white people against black people and highlight that for fucking 10 years, but don't talk about the reverse. And I think that's what we kind of focus
Definitely,
on.
and that's what I said, like what sparked this flame again and this interest. It's something that's been, I have considered like forever, is talking about stuff like this. And the thing is that when everybody posted black screens on Instagram, it really pissed me off, because I had friends on Instagram and 100%. Facebook that posted Black Lives Matters, but nothing ever got shared about a white person that got attacked. And like I said, like, we don't want to make it racial, but if you're going to post a black screen, will you post a white screen? Will you? Like, will you stand up for yourself and for what you believe in?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the taboo in South Africa. You don't mention a discrimination if you're white against white, because then you're automatically seen as a racist. And you can't talk about these things, and that's the freedom of speech thing. It's like you get shut down so hard for certain things, and like labeled a racist, labeled this, but everybody jumps on the virtue signaling bandwagon and Black Lives Matter, but they're not solving anything. And half those people, they just want to feel good about themselves for being such a good person, and it's so inauthentic that it really pissed me off as well. It's like, I know half those people posting that, and I know that that's not what their life's work is all about. So, like, I don't know, a bit frustrating.
Yeah, that's also the
people
thing. Like, that's people that I know they don't give a fuck about it, but they still post it.
And 100%.
And it's like you said. I think people are catching up to this whole, and I think because of the COVID thing, and we've got fed a lot of lies in the beginning. I think people are opening their eyes and realizing shit, but people are feeding us stuff, and we're just believing it. And we are just taking,
100%.
if we see a news article on Facebook and we go in there and it's got a nice website, we can trust it. And they don't question anything. And I think that is the whole thing about the farmer tax as well. It gets posted somewhere, but you don't know. And then people are like, I'm just gonna scroll past this because I don't want to see about another farm attack. But okay, cool, everybody's doing Black Lives Matters, let me jump into this, let me quickly Google what's going on with it. You understand? So there's no
100%.
there's no thing of let me check what's happening in my own country and blow that up and make people aware of what's actually going on. Let's rather jump on the bandwagon with everybody else and post a black screen. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying that's how it came forth, that everybody just jumped on this Black Lives Matters and nothing was ever said. And I know the same people won't post anything about farm murders.
100%. And that's why going into all of this, why I'm actually sitting there talking to you, because I can't believe how people are manipulated like puppets by the mainstream. From Corona to watching that whole bullshit unfold, to then that ending overnight, Black Lives Matter, so very conveniently, boom, that's the next topic of the day. Everybody jumping on that, and I couldn't believe how people were just literally reacting, and I was just like, hang on here, why don't people actually do a bit of investigating for themselves, see what's going on, and make your own decision? Don't trust me, don't trust you, don't trust, but people just, they take it all in. And prime example, I was looking at contradictions on the coronavirus. I type in corona contradictions, all it does is give me how Trump's an idiot, Trump's an idiot, Trump's an idiot. I didn't search that. So the information we're getting is very carefully selected, and people don't realize that. And,
definitely.
And it's that realization that I think has sparked me to start speaking about these things, because people are like sheep, and that analogy has never been better. It really is the case of watching that, and the Black Lives Matter is a prime example. But that's a topic for another day. I think we can chat about other topics and delve deep into all of them. But this is really cool, man.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm super keen to dig into the next one. But it's exactly like you said. It's just people believing anything that they read, see, and like you said, they condition us in what they want us to believe. If we don't speak about farm murders, we think that it's not happening. And like you said, we don't read about it anymore. The only reason why it's been brought up now is because it is happening more and more, and we can't look past it anymore. It's getting to a stage where we can't let it go anymore.
It is getting to a stage where you can almost label it a genocide, because to some degree it is,
Definitely.
If you want to look at it through a racial lens, and it's something that needs to be spoken about. And I think even looking at topics on this, I was researching, trying to get more information on this, and there's not that much accessible information on farm murders, which is quite disturbing when you know the amount of them that's happening. So definitely something, but it is good to see that people are raising awareness around this because of what's happening now, and I think it has sparked a bit of irritation in a lot of South Africans that some of these issues are not spoken about. So it's good to see. Hopefully we create more awareness around it, and I think hopefully people can just wake up on a bigger scale to the bullshit.
I think that's also the deeper meaning of shows like this. It's discussing a topic, and it's bringing forth the problem that we're sitting for, but it's also just like taking somebody and like shaking them a little bit and be like, wake up, there's problems out there. Don't be naive. Don't believe everything that you see and that you read. Like, go and do your research. And And
Yeah,
that's what I
so-
think your main focus is of your show as well. It's just for people to wake up a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think there's this tendency in society to just label anybody that questions the official narrative as automatically a flat earth conspiracy theorist. And it's like, hang on,
Yeah.
it's not so black and white. There's a wide range of things that's going on here. It's not just conspiracy theorist or like we have to start questioning certain things and talking about them. And I think, that's why I want to have these kind of conversations. So
Yeah, no, it's
hopefully
awesome,
we can do
man.
more of them going forward. Yeah.
Lekker.
Sweet friend, I think that's about it, eh?
All right, my bro. That's
Thanks, brother. We'll chat
that's
again
awesome.
soon, and
Perfect.
definitely gonna have a couple of more of these.
That sounds good, man. I'm keen. I'll chat to you soon.
Sweet man.
All right.
Chat soon, brother.
Lekker, Dazza.
Cheers,
Keep well,
cheers.
man.